Ashe, 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 and welcome to Storytime, where I share my retellings and readings of the timeless tale of the Orisha. I am Ashley, your Orisha storyteller and guide through the rich mythology and folklore of the Orisha. It is my hope that these stories uplift you when you are feeling down, expand your perspective of the Orisha, and strengthen your Ashe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. This story is titled The Apetebi is Not the Wife or Slave of the Babalawo. And I knew when I was reading through Patakin Orisha Stories of the Odu of Ifa by David H. Brown, I could not wait to share this one on our podcast because my first time hearing about an Apetabi, I was told that it was the wife of the Babalawo. And I was actually introduced by a woman who was married to a Babalawo talking about she was the Apetabi. And something always kind of was like, damn, what happened if they break up? What happens to his work? Does he have somebody to help him then? And I had a lot of questions. And of course, the Babalawo couldn't answer it because I think she was in our pets I be more, to kind of manipulate her into saying, oh, you need to be in this relationship, as opposed to that really being her role in the practices. So this story definitely shed some light for me as a newcomer into the traditions on what an apetabi is. Because a lot of us don't know, and we know that some people, I'm not saying no names because I'm not messy, but they will use our ignorance for their benefit. So it is my hope in sharing the story, not just that it gives you insight into what an apetabi is and the role of the apetabi within the practices, but also how these fools be trying to manipulate us into thinking we something special when they just trying to get their way. So I hope you enjoyed the story. Again, the title of this story is Apetabi is Not the Wife or Slave of the Babalawo. You can find this story in Orisha Stories of the Odu of Ifa. The title is Patakin by David H. Brown. Alacero, the king of the city of Acero, sent for Orumila to perform divination for him and the members of his community as he was ill. Orumila consulted his Ifa about the request and the journey to the city of Acedo, and he made the prescribed offerings. On the way to Acedo, he came across a hut where he took shelter while it was raining. In another, he rested in order to continue his trip to Acedo the next day. It happened that a woman lived in the house that had hosted him that night. The next morning, before he was leaving, he found out that the woman was a leper in Adete. He promised that he would return and help her following his trip to Acedo. Orumila spent more time than he had planned to spend in Acedo because there were many people who needed his advice and his guidance. Many people came to the city looking for Orumila. They wanted to be sure. Well, yeah, the women was coming to the city looking for Orumila because they wanted to be sure that he was still there and he would receive a particular young woman who suffered from leprosy. However, she did not want to go because the leper stayed apart from the other members in the community. Notwithstanding, they insisted and convinced her to go see Orumila, who agreed to help her ailment. He divined and made offerings, and the attendant, they made the preparations for the curing of the leprosy. Afterwards, once her sores went away, Orumila saw that she was a very beautiful woman, and they made love, and the woman got pregnant, giving birth to a baby girl. On her own, the woman gave her daughter the name baby whose mother was cured, Apa, meaning cure of leprosy, Ete, before giving birth, and B, so Apeta B, meaning the baby whose mother was cured. However, because Orumila had left town, he never knew that he was a father. Some years later, he returned to Ashedo because he found out that the king had fallen ill again, and Orumila had to come and make the ceremonies for the king's health to improve. So once he arrived in Ashedo, he saw this beautiful woman and she caught his attention. But she was a lot younger than he was, and he also knew that she was the slave of the king. Still, he couldn't resist seeing her. So Rumila was like, he helped the king to get better. And then the king proposed that Orunmila stay in the city and take over as the king because he knew, like the king knew he was gonna die soon. And he knew Orunmila was the only one who could really be king. So of course Orunmila accepted, and when he finally spoke to the young woman, she told him she was a virgin. She wanted to stay that way until she was married, since her mother, who had relations with only one man in her life, and she wanted to be the same as her mother. Orunmila respected her request, and only on their wedding night would they, they do the boom boom. So he was in awe of her, and he never stopped to ask her name. He never stopped to ask her who her mother was. All he knew is that he wanted her and he wanted to marry her. He was going to do right by her. So the day of the wedding ceremony, Orunmila heard the name of the young woman for the first time when the king spoke of her. And he said, because he understood the significance of her name. And he kind of pulled her. He's like, "Who is your mother?" And so he heard her story. He understood that he was her father, but he carried on with the wedding ceremony anyway. And I know y'all probably like, "Where's this going?" Ashley, y'all just sit down and listen. Only later, when they were alone, did he explain to her that he was her father. And he told her that he was going away and he wanted to leave her as the queen of Ashedo. In order to give her that now, he wasn't able to give her, he could give her now what he couldn't give her before. And in that way, everything would accept her as the wife of Orunmila. When we say the wife of Orunmila, in a way, yeah, she was his wife. He did marry her. And because they saw her as his wife, they never questioned her being queen. That way, she ain't always have to go into all the details about him being her father and how her mama got there and the cure and everything. She got to keep her little secret, but then her dad also set her up for success. David Brown goes on to elaborate on the meaning of Apetebi, and I think it's important to share this again because this is a title that I've seen used to manipulate women into relationships or staying into relationships, and I think that being knowledgeable of things helps us to avoid manipulation. So I want to go on to read what David elaborated upon in regards to the Apetebi. The word Apetebi is opposed of the root words apa, ete, and bi. Apa, APA, means to kill, or in reality, to cure. Ete, ETE, in the is Yoruba for leprosy, and B means to give birth. For this reason, it is wrong for people to call the wife of the Babalawo Apetebi, because Apetebi is in fact the daughter of Orunmila. Many people make this error, including those who go further to say there exists a ritual one can take in order to become an Apetebi. This is not only incorrect, but it's also a deceit and has no I can't even say the word. Then he said this is not only incorrect, but this is also a deceit. It has no relevance to the Ifa tradition. The Apetabi is not the wife of the Babalawo, but the daughter of the Babalawo. So it would be more accurate if a Babalawo has his daughter or even a cousin or a relative acting as the Apetabi versus his girlfriend or his wife. Because I don't know about y'all, but that sounds like trouble to me. I hope this story expanded your perspective and gave you some insight on what an apetapi is. I would love to know what your opinion is on this story, if you've had any apetapi experiences, and what stories you want to hear next. I look forward to hearing from you. You can always visit me at theasheshop.com to book a session, to register for a class, or to pick up some spiritual bath and body products. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Oh.